Hello everyone and welcome back to StudyMonster's WJEC Vocational ICT video series. In this video, and it's our last one for Unit 1.2, where we are looking at how input data is checked for errors. So, setting our goals first, we're going to start with identifying different data capture methods. Now, we have done this before. We've looked at this in a previous video way back in Unit 1.1, where we looked at different capture methods like scanners and readers and things like that. We're going to be looking at the difference between validation and verification alongside different sources of data errors. So how are errors introduced into our data, into our systems, as well as techniques to reduce or prevent errors. And then, as always, we'll be looking at some example exam questions. So first things first, a little recap on data capture methods. So data capture is a process of collecting information that we enter into a system. There's manual methods of doing this, and there's also automatic methods of doing it. So manual methods is just simply somebody sitting with a keyboard and typing data from forms from a paper-based form using a keyboard into a system. Maybe it's typing barcodes from into a system using a keyboard. So manual entry, things that have been done for many years. Automatic ways of capturing data, so things like scanners that we've talked about in a previous video, optical character recognition, optical mark recognition, RFID tags, QR codes, voice input, all of these different things. Basically, automatic methods of data capture use technology to do that, which very much reduce the amount of risk involved in errors being introduced into our system. So, possible sources of errors then. Errors can sneak into data at any point within that process, really. So when someone types, scans, or uploads data, a single mistyped character can cause a database error, a missent letter, anything along them lines. That's why checking input data is so important. So if you imagine typing mistakes, somebody's just accidentally typed the wrong postcode, so they've missed a letter or they've missed a number from the postcode. Someone has misread someone's handwriting. We all don't have really neat handwriting. If somebody's misread a letter or a number on a manually written piece of paper, and they've typed something into the system wrong, we've introduced errors straight away. A scanner might malfunction while it's scanning, which again will introduce errors into a database. Or somebody's just typed the wrong number, so they might have typed a letter into a number field where the system's expecting a number. Out of date information, like we talked about in our quality of data, we've got to make sure that the data that we're putting into our systems is of good quality. So if you remember that term, garbage in and garbage out, our data has got to be accurate, it's got to be up to date, it's got to be fit for purpose. If it's not, potentially we're introducing errors into our system. Moving on, so difference between validation and verification. So first off, validation. So validation doesn't prove that data is correct. It just checks or it could be correct. So think of it like a bit like a gatekeeper. If the data doesn't follow the rules, then it's not going to be let into the system. So we've got a list of different validation types on the table on screen. So we've got things like a range check. So it's going to check if the data sits within a specific range. So an example might be, is somebody's age between 0 and 120? A length check. So a correct number of characters. So a postcode, does it have a maximum of 7 characters? Or a product code, does it have a maximum of 12 characters? Or whatever that validation might be. A format check, does the data follow a correct pattern? So does an email field have an @ sign in it? That's a common format check. Presence check is one that you will see all the time. You've no doubt used it in the past. You'll be filling an online form in and there's a little red asterisk that says this field is required. So it's not going to let you submit and commit that data to a system until you've filled something in that text box. A presence check. So a lookup check, does the value that you've typed match something in that list? So if you were typing, let's say where you're typing a new member of staff into a staff table, into a staff form, The departments will only be a set amount of departments like IT, HR, finance, and so on and so forth. So have we typed in something that hits one of them in that lookup check, or has the user just selected it from a drop down? And when we talk about how we can prevent these, we will look at drop down lists as well. So data validation, is it sensible and allowed? Data verification, it's all about checking the data, or the person entering the data, is correct and genuine. So the simplest form of is double entry. So these are sort of traditional methods. So the simplest form will be double entry, so where you type something twice to make sure that it matches, or somebody sits and visually checks the data. So for example, they might be checking a printed invoice against a digital invoice within a system to make sure that they both marry up, they both match. Traditional methods. So modern systems go a little bit further. So again, we're introducing technology into more modern systems. So you might not have heard of these, but you'll have definitely come across them online. CAPTCHAs. These verify that data is being entered by a human, stopping bots or programs from flooding systems with bad data. So these are them little picture tests that you get where it says click on all the buses, or click on all the zebra crossings, or something along them lines. Then we've got two-form factor authentication, which a lot of you will use, and I would encourage you to use on your email systems and your accounts online. So it adds another level, another layer of verification. So it's confirming that you are the person entering the data, is really who you say you are. Techniques might be getting a text message sent to your mobile phone with a code in that you then have to enter into the online form, or using an authenticator app that will give you a 6 sort of PIN digit number that you then enter into the website. So data verification is, has that data been entered correctly? So remember the difference between verification and validation. So techniques to overcome errors. So we can design forms and systems to reduce the chance of error. So if users only choose from drop-down menus as an example, then they can't accidentally type something in wrong. So if you remember in Unit 2, when we were designing our databases, drop-down menus are really good for stopping people. It sort of stops people from mistyping words. So we could provide like a department drop-down list that has HR, has IT, has finance in, and the user can just select one. And it doesn't just stop misspellings, it stops the capitalization of words as well. So you might have one user that would type finance with a capital F, another user that types it all in capitals, another user that types it with no capitals whatsoever. So it keeps our data uniformed and correct. Input masks. So for example, date fields are very common for input masks. Postcodes are. So we might force the user to enter a date by typing day, as in 1/5 for 15th, month, 03 for March, and then year for 2025, or year for 25. So we can force people to enter data using input masks, which again will limit errors in being introduced into the system. We don't want a situation where one user enters it with 3 digits for a year and another user enters it with 2 digits for a year. So the data becomes inconsistent. Barcode scanners and technology will capture data automatically, which again will overcome errors. Confirmation screens, so forcing a user to check the data before it's committed to a system, is a common one. And then one of the easiest is user training. If you were putting somebody in front of a system and expecting them to use it, then train them how to use it. Make sure there's clear instructions on your forms. If you are using an online form and you want to collect data from people, make sure that you've got notes on there, make sure you've got error messages on there that give the user feedback so they know what's expected of them. So moving on, real world example, if you think you go online and you are wanting to buy something and you start to create an account, and the shop asks you for your address, so the form's asking you for your address and your contact details. So validation rules is going to check that your postcode format is correct, and maybe that your house number is a number and it's not a letter. So we've got some validation techniques running there. Then Verification, it might ask you to re-enter your email to confirm that you've not mistyped it the first time, or it might ask you give you a confirmation screen to double check that your details is correct before it's submitted to the database that's behind the online shop. So if we apply what we've looked at so far, a nice straightforward question to start with, and we'll look at a model answer for 2 marks. So explain the difference between validation and verification. So a nice straightforward one. It's really important that you understand the difference between the two. So validation checks the data against the rules. For example, does an email have an @ symbol? Whereas verification checks the accuracy of that data. For example, asking the user to re-enter the email again to make sure it was right the first time. Now, over to you. So we'll start as usual with a bronze, easier question. So state what is meant by data validation for 1 mark. So pause the video here and have a go. So data validation is the process that checks whether entered data meets specific rules or criteria before it's accepted into a system. So nice and straightforward, that one. So second question, which is a silver, explain how a range check validation helps to reduce errors when entering data for 3 marks. So make sure you've got 3 points on that one. So pause the video here and have a go. So typical answer might be a range check ensures that the data entered falls within a set of acceptable values, such as the age between 0 and 120. This prevents unrealistic or incorrect data from being entered into a system. So we've said what validation is, what range check is, and we've given an example of it being used and why it would be used to avoid errors. And then finally, our gold question. Describe 2 possible sources of data entry error and how each can be reduced or prevented for 6 marks. So a little bit longer. Pause the video and have a go. So typing errors is 1 possible source of data entry. So we've already got a mark there. So these occur when users manually enter data incorrectly. 2nd mark. They can be reduced by using drop-down menus or input masks. There's our 3rd mark, that limit what can be typed. Misreading handwriting, so our 4th mark, so it's our 2nd possible source of data entry. So when transferring information from paper forms, handwriting can be misinterpreted. So there's our 2nd mark of that possible data entry one, so our 5th mark. This can be prevented by using online forms or an automatic data capture method, such as a barcode or OCR scanner for our 6th mark. So remember, data capture can be manual or automatic. Validation checks the rules, so is the data sensible? Whereas verification checks the accuracy of that data. So was it entered right? Is it correct? So common errors can be prevented through design and training. So designing our input forms to make sure that the user knows what they're expected to enter, and then giving training so that people using these systems know how to use them correctly to avoid errors being introduced. So remember, data needs to be fit for purpose. Garbage into your systems will produce garbage out of your systems. So that's it for this one, and it's also finished unit 1.2 now. So the next unit of work is going to be 1.3, where we're going to be talking about how data is transferred over different types of networks. So remember to like and subscribe for more WJEC vocational videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.